Hello, everyone. Today we have one more professional with us, and along with him, I am exploring some of the possible things which may get asked when one goes for product owner, product management kind of interviews. So the idea here is we just want to explore some of the, I would say, a case study oriented questions rather than just asking what is the role of a product owner and what is a user story. We just want to ask that, okay, what you have done and may talk about your experience around that. So I will ask some question and then I will wait a professional to share his ideas around that. And then we will see possibly like how should we address that particular question in an effective way. Now, when someone asks, tell me about the vision of your current product, or tell me about a vision of any of the product which you have worked with, how one should answer that. Okay, so I hear the professional and then I share my idea.
Yeah, hi, Saket. Thanks for letting me have this discussion with you. So let me introduce myself. So I have got around 19 years of experience, and the biggest challenge is I'm from the infrastructure background. Most of the time I have been working on the infrastructure, not on the software or the development part. Now, as you know, because of the current industry's direction in the direction on which industry is moving, we understand that infrastructure part is squeezing and the development another part is growing, like cloud and all this stuff in the market, right? So now people like me want to jump to the different profile, transform themselves to software project manager or maybe product owner kind of stuff. So what we do, we generally do training, we do a lot of studies. So like I did Scrum Master certification, I did certain safe certifications also, right? But challenge comes again when we are applying for a product owner profile. So we are facing a lot of challenges over there, right? So like you ask, what is the vision, right, for any product? So either we can go bookish, we can explain the what vision mean actually, what we want to do in the vision, or we can put, which would be more practical, we get some example from our past experience and build a story around that. But people like me have a challenge that we don't have any such past experience because we have been doing something on in the infrastructure space, right? Now all of a sudden I've been asked, okay, give a product vision. So we are little struggling on these, right? So now in that case, we can take some existing product which is already in the market. It could be Indeed or maybe
Sure.
uh, so we can go that way actually.
Yeah, so I got it. So let me reframe the thing and maybe we reevaluate what we are exploring here. So the
Mhm.
background here is that someone is trying to get into a product management space or a product
Right.
ownership space, and the
Mhm.
person might have done all the education, like might have understood what is a product backlog, what is product vision, what is a user story, how to write a user story, and with this
Mhm.
knowledge, when one goes for an interview, in an interview, the interviewer, a smart interviewer, will try to extract, rather than just asking definitions, he would try to extract, okay, what you have done, yeah, what you have
Correct.
learned by doing it rather than just by studying it. And that is
Right.
a place where questions like these will come. Say, okay, sometimes they may give you a case study and ask you to build things around that. Sometimes they may say,
Mhm.
okay, let me understand what you have been doing and tell me something about your product. Now,
Mhm.
my recommendation here is, see, whenever someone is trying to get into a product ownership kind of a profile, one has
Mhm.
to prepare that quite well. Rather than just preparing the Scrum and product owner terminology, one has to also prepare a case study of his or her own product. Now, how can you do
Mhm.
that? Assuming you were not involved in that, yeah? Assuming you
Mhm.
were participating as a support person or as a project manager. But wherever you
Mhm.
work, if you look around, be it a cloud product, be it a normal product, you can find out some possible things which might be you may be involved, but you might not be driving it. And when you start building things around that, it will be useful. Now, when someone asks, what is a vision? Now, the person who is answering it and what kind of a aspect he is describing, that may make an interviewer understand how deep the person is involved in a product management. Say, someone who is talking about customer segment, target customer segment, when they answer about a vision, someone may also talk about what is the primary need which they were serving by doing that particular product. Yeah, they also emphasize quickly about the key benefits. Why? What are the compelling reason in their mind which makes people buy that product or service? And then may also give some insight about differentiation. Yeah, that how we differentiate ourselves from the existing solution, or I would say what are the problem in the existing solution which we are going to solve. Yeah, and not necessarily in the form of a template, but if these things emerges in a vision statement when the person answers it, that may give us a better insight about environment. Yeah. So that is something which I believe can help in making an impactful interview answer in such a situation. What do you think when I am saying all this?
Yeah, you correctly said, Sakesh. So, I mean, we need to assume actually for any given product, and then think how how would how would he think should be the vision of that particular product down the line for 3 to 5 years, or maybe 5 to 7 years, and then what should be different actions that we need to take to achieve that to reach that level, or the what the vision is actually.
Yeah. So if I just dig deeper, what kind of a product directly, indirectly you think you were involved in? Anything, directly, indirectly, if you don't mind sharing.
Like for one example, I'm just taking. I have got very few software projects. So one of the example is uh, it was about trading engine. One of the stock exchange, we were working on the trading engine where it is going to be the world's fastest trading engine. Like the moment you commit, you're going to buy some share, so it will give within a microsecond of time, it will buy that share for you. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a world's fastest trading engine for the share
Mm-hmm.
market,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I take that an example,
So
then probably
is it something a trading product which is helping people to put a bid, and the product is such an efficient so that it can execute the bid faster than the other platform? Is this
right.
the goal?
Yeah, this is the goal, right?
Okay. Now, if I talk about this particular product, for
Mhm.
whom is it is made?
Uh, this was made for the shareholders who are member of that particular stock exchange and
Okay.
doing trading
Yeah. Now,
for
if
the different stocks.
if we dig deeper here, is it for
Mhm.
retail like traders? Is it for corporate like institutionalized trader, or is it for the middlemen or brokers?
I believe it was for everyone.
Yeah. So we
I
need to
mean,
find that
corporate
out.
bulk. Yeah.
Yeah, we did
Mhm.
find it out because see the attitude and approach changes. Because see,
Mhm.
as a individual broker, how do I as an individual retail trade investor, how do I enroll to it? Yeah, because I usually get enrolled through some channel. Yeah. Whereas
Mhm.
the say broker, they have their own mechanism of interacting with the stock exchange. Yeah, and mechanism of broker interacting with the stock exchange and a retail investor interacting with the stock exchange is pretty different, you know.
Mhm.
And the priorities are also very different. Yeah, so maybe a retail investor may not worry about a speed, but a broker may worry about a speed. And
Right.
that is the first thing we need to find out, because many times as a technical people we end up missing is we made it for the user, whoever wants to use it can use it. Now actually that is a weakness in a vision, because vision should explain that who is the person who is using it, and what problem you are solving. Now, the second question I might ask is, once we have a target segment, what problem the current solution which this guy has were giving, like what is missing right now, which your product is going to solve. Any clue, any idea about what might be missing in the current solution?
Mm, uh, they were mostly focusing on the speed only, but
Mm-hmm.
there might be another. So I was not involved at that level,
Yeah, we
that
need
point
to
of time.
find that out. Now, again,
Yeah.
when you talk about speed, we need to understand what happens when the speed is slow, what the person
Mhm.
loses because of a slow speed.
Mhm. Mhm.
And if we can talk about that, I have XYZ customer segment who, as XYZ person or a persona, who is trying
Mhm.
to do a trade in the stock exchange. And because of the current systems, his order takes more than X number of seconds, which makes him
Mhm.
lose the opportunity of XYZ quantity in the dollar. Our system is going to facilitate and improve the execution
Mhm.
of a speed of the transaction, which will result into the saving of or a benefit of this amount
Yeah.
of money. And unlike the current platform, we are using something like this, and that is something which is helping them to achieve the goal which they are trying to achieve. And that makes a vision statement. We are clear about that, okay, this is what we are looking for. What do you feel when I explain all this?
So basically, the product we are building, what is going to be benefit for the end user out of that product, right?
Yes. And I just want to little bit correct here. We also need to talk about who is that end user, yeah, and how badly that end user needs this particular product. So means the
Okay.
need, yeah. So because when we talk very generic in a product management space, it may produce a very generic product. There could be a generic products which are platform oriented and all. You can say that I'm
Mhm.
just transferring data from one location to another location, and we have a platform which does that. So it could be a very system oriented product, yeah. So you don't have any
Mhm.
particular user. So there could be some product which are technology oriented, but there are other
Mhm.
products which are dealing with the individual needs or an enterprise needs. Then we need to talk about who are those target segment, and we can visualize them by the way of having a persona map of them. We can visualize them by way of creating a draft empathy map. Now, you may
Mhm. Mhm.
reiterate back and says what kind of a user story we had, what kind of a features we were making. And then maybe if you miss that opportunity that time thinking about it, you can go back and says, okay, probably this is what they were doing. And now you can do a research about what are the alternative for that particular product. So whatever the name of the product, you search about it
Mhm.
and find out
Mhm.
who are the competitors. Sometimes the competitor may give you a lot of material, and that can
Right.
help you to come up with that, okay, this is something we did. And when you talk about it, the other person also get a feeling that yes, you were involved and you have at least invested your time and energy to see it end to end.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, make some sense.
Yeah, makes some sense. Another thing was coming to my mind, Saket. Actually, there was. I might be wrong. Just correct me. Uh, there could be two role or two different kind of product owner. Like
Perfect.
one is, or maybe both might be doing the entire thing. Like one is like who is looking outside about the market and all those stuff. Who is going to be user? How soon or how frequently we want to release? What are the benefits that end user going to take? Who are the competitor? What should the changes? What feature we should bring first? In which geo we should be launching it? What should the time frame when we are launching it? Right, all those
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then other set of activities would be like how we are interacting within our organization, like
Mm-hmm.
our developer team, then our uh, higher management, or the who is the financing, who the person who is doing financing the project, where is stakeholder within within the company, right?
Got it. Yeah.
So these, I mean, a PO is supposed to do all this activity, or there would be different role for?
See, that's a good question. So what we are saying here is that especially in a large enterprise, there is a possibility that someone is a market focused and someone is an internal and development focused. So someone is
Right.
working on the market segment identification, working on the pricing identification, working on the distribution channel identification, and a way you are going to license it, and mechanism of enterprise license, individual license, per seat license. Somebody is working on that strategy. And once those things comes up, ultimately they get converted into a set of requirement which should be produces in the system. And there is a guy who gets it done. Yeah. So there is a possibility of these two roles. But when you talk about a vision, ideally someone might be preparing it and someone might be helping it to get it executed. But everybody should be clear about it, especially the people who are into a product management space. So technically speaking, this vision should be clear to a developer also who is working in that particular development team. But at least even if you are an internal product owner who is working closely with the other guy, that is also need to be taken care of. Yeah. And that's an important aspect, especially people who are planning to like move from one type of work to another type of work and want to present their experience. I would say that one has to understand or create a kind of an organization structure in which they feel they want to project themselves. So you need to probably, like, because a good interviewer may even ask that, okay, tell me about how the communication and exchange of information used to happen related to product. So you may end up plotting it on the paper. So before you do that, you should be clear that where you want to put yourself and what are the other players you want to put in the game. And sometimes better you have those named players. So if you may say that there is an external guy, there is a stakeholder 1, there is a stakeholder 2, there is a stakeholder 3. That is what type of information they used to give. That is their name. That is they used to do in their environment. And this is how I used to interact with them. And ultimately, their influence on the product. So if you are thinking of external, internal, product manager, product owner kind of a thing, I would say that better you create a complete organization chart.
Right.
Make some sense for that part?
Yeah, makes sense. A lot of sense.
Yeah. Because
And
it
then
is, you go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, so then other responsibilities, like when coming to the internal part, when you are interacting with the stakeholder and the development team, then you come to the product backlog. I believe grooming and prioritizing the backlog is again product owner's responsibility, right?
Yes. I would say that's an artifact this guy generates. Yeah. But there is a lot of things happens which are not necessarily directly linked to grooming the product backlog. Yeah. And prioritizing the product backlog. So if I a little drill down in my thought, it is like this. How do I know someone should be prioritized high? Yeah. So I need to have a kind of my assumptions, my basis for doing that. And how do I form those assumptions? How do I form those bases? So I might be doing alternative products analysis. I might be interacting with other development groups. I might be interacting with the stakeholders. I might be interacting with the target customer. I might be
Correct.
observing target customer. I might be visiting their work area. For example, I might be visiting stock exchange and seeing brokers doing something, or I might be visiting some of the brokers' office and understand how they are working on it. So it is like by doing a customer visit, by doing a market research, by doing a competitor product analysis, by doing a benchmarking, I develop a sense of my market and my product, and might be some amount of technology research also, because technology is also becoming very integrated part of my thing. And that then I kind of reflect that thing, or I communicate that thing in the form of backlog priority. Yeah, so that's how I will say that yes, person has to do a prioritization, but there is a homework before you do a prioritization.
Right. And after once, I mean, after doing the market survey, we understand that what feature should be released first, all those stuff. Then probably we need to also check uh, doing what activity or adding what, taking what story or what feature is costing how much or how soon or effectively we can do that, and what would be the cost if we are doing it sooner than later or doing it later than sooner. So all those analysis also need to be done
Yeah.
while we are prioritizing it, right?
Yes, yes. And this part you are saying is something like many times known as a cost of delay. So like,
Cost of delay, right?
and especially if you use these terms, it's a good idea as well. Just a second. Looks like this thing is giving little glitch. Just a second. Let me change it. Yes. Yeah. I'm audible.
Yeah, you're on.
Sure. So what I was saying is, so this thing we can understand as a cost of delay. And this thing becomes more and more important when you have incremental releases, especially when something is already in the market. Because when you are working on a first release, then again, it's important, but mainly the priorities are more driven by the risk mitigation step. So the sense of cost of delay is simple. What are we losing by not delivering something at this point in time? And when we see that we are losing more, and how do I identify what we are losing? It is an estimate of a business value, is an estimate of a business value's relationship with the time. So some of the business value, or I would say the estimated value of that particular feature, how sensitive it is with the time. So like, for example, if it's the feature has something to do with the Christmas, after Christmas, it goes down. There is no value in that feature, or there is very less value in this feature. But if the Christmas has something which is a long duration, long shelf life, it may not be that much time sensitivity. So idea here is these factors plays a role in prioritization. And the big thing is they all are estimate. Many of them are guessing games, so there is no one answer to it. And that also brings back that as a product manager, product owner, or whatever name you give to you also need to work with the stakeholders so that we have some agreement on those estimated business value. Somebody will say this feature will be a great feature, or it will return us $1 million. And somebody will say that nobody will buy because of this feature. It's just a waste in the product. Again, we don't know who is right, and maybe both are wrong. But ultimately, when we are developing a product, we are taking collective judgment. So we need to identify some set of people who have an insight on that particular area, and they work together along with the product owner. They bring their data, they bring their assumption. The way we play a planning poker for estimating the user story point, similarly, we may play a planning poker or some estimation process to come up with a cost of delay. Yeah. And that may play a good role in prioritization.
Okay, so a part of making a vision statement clear, understanding the vision, and a part of doing what is needed in the market, who are our competitor, when or what should we release, and then coming to internal team and interacting with the stakeholder development team and all those stuff, prioritizing the backlog. So a part of this, what else that we need to focus on to be a product manager?
What I feel is, especially when you are preparing for it, one has to see the full cycle. That is what my recommendation is. At least you be ready with the full cycle, and maybe the other guy may want to know about the full cycle. Now, what is the full cycle? The full cycle is it is starting from an idea, and it is finishing on when you realize your investment on that idea. Yeah. So I would say that idea till investment realization, that's a full cycle which one might be looking at. Now, most of the time, product manager, or if you are a project specific product manager or a product owner, your role may get over by the time your first or second release happens. And in some cases, you may have some association left even when the product is just running and getting supported, but not having very active development in it. Yeah. So that's a possibility. So you may have your engagement endpoint. It's a project. If it's a projectized environment, then your engagement stops at a release. And if it's a productized environment, then your engagement remains little till long. But many times those kind of a product managers are business level product managers. They are not development level product managers. So first we need to clarify that, okay, I am into a development space. My engagement remains till product reaches to a stage. Yeah, it could be it could just start getting into a maturity stage where the other set of product managers and teams starts taking care of it. So that could be a probable end point of view. Now, what happens in between? So the first is you have a vision. Sometimes vision is given to you. Sometimes vision is explored collaboratively. And that vision may get into some level of understanding where you do a estimation of, does it really worth investing in? So some kind of a business case analysis, some kind of a validation of that, is it a good idea to invest in it? And in order to do that, especially people who are involved in that particular stage might work on listing down all the assumptions, listing down the best case scenario, the worst case scenario. They may take primary data, secondary data, something which they can directly observe, some global trends, some internet trends, some buying patterns, some, depending upon the type of a product, the macroeconomic parameters. So that all goes in order to create a case that this is a good idea and looks like we can make money out of it, or this is something which is supporting the organization vision. So this part of doing it, you can say a business case. Yeah? So the vision has a business case. Or sometime if you are using a safe language, this is called epics, So yeah, depending upon what kind of a terminology you wanna put into. Now, assuming that business case found useful, like everybody liked the idea, and then the development got started and you are involved there. Now, when you are doing that, you may get into the further detailing of identifying the minimum viable part of it, or identifying some set of features, some set of a product idea, which can help us in validating our assumptions are right or wrong. Now, it also depends upon what kind of a product you are picking up. If the product is catering to a new market segment, then you will need to get into with an MVP and validate it. Does this market segment really exist? If the product is targeting to an established market, there is already someone serving the need, and you are going to serve that need only, but in a little bit better way, little efficient way. So there is kind of an established market. In case of an established market, your approach and work might be a little different. So it is more about how do you, because in an established market space, you may not launch a product with less features. You want to have at least those set of features which are already selling or already important from the other vendor. So you might need to work in that particular space. So you can say that once the business case is approved, you start working on the work. Then you primarily work with various customer segments, and those customer segments might be represented in the form of user personas, and you may have visibility of that, and you closely understand and work with them and keep populating your product backlog, or whatever name backlog you want to give. You populate that with the help of features. Yeah. And after that, you closely work with the development team and get things done. Yeah, you explain them, you communicate the vision very clearly to them all the time. You bring the customer empathy data to the development team so that they also start feeling like a customer. So that becomes your primary role and process. And once there is something which is ready, maybe after an iteration or one or two, you start working on how do I validate it back. So whatever we started, sometimes you do an internal validation. So you take the product and talk to the people who probably have a better sense of customers feeling, So people who are day in, day out going to the customers visit, and they are supporting them by way of some other product. Yeah. So you are giving a demo to them so that you know what they feel about it. Sometimes there is a marketing research people, you give a product demo to them, and there is a possibility of a stage where you want to take it to the end customer by way of giving them some kind of a beta release or some kind of a MVP release. Usually you end up doing with a trusted customer segment. So for example, if you are in a stock exchange market, you might be already working with few brokers, and there is another product which is working on the brokers. You come up with this product, you may do a limited release for few of the brokers, and they might have an incentive of using it. Yeah. So you probably use those kind of studies to validate the assumptions which are made in between. So you may need to have some steps, or you may observe in your product those kind of steps happening, and then you reach to a stage where you have something ready and you end up releasing to the product, to the market. And releasing to the market itself can come up with lots of activities where you may need to work with a marketing group to have a good positioning, to good messaging, right messaging about the product. Sometimes you may end up working with other channel development people where they want to have a different way of selling of the product, and they need some kind of adjustment in your technological space so that it is compatible with their channel and distribution plan. So again, we need to find out which part you want to limit to based on what you have observed in your organization, but these all are possible directions. And then ultimately you might be having some mechanism of getting feedback back from those limited release and later on with the final releases to find out how much benefit really came from this particular product. So how much realization of your business case happened. Now, in many cases, many product managers, product owners may not have a visibility of a benefit realization. They don't even, the organization structure may not even expect them to even go till there. But in some organizations, they have that visibility. So you need to be clear where you are targeting and which part you want to limit to. Yeah, what do you think here?
Yeah, so broadly, three broad things. Number one, starts with idea, and then case study, doing some business case, and then starting the development work and come up with some MVP product, and then releasing that or sending that to market, or maybe doing an internal review and see if we are getting what we are supposed to get out of that MVP. Right? And then finally working on the final product and releasing or growing day by day until finally come to the final stage of the product, right? And then realizing what are the returns out of that. Right? So
Perfect.
broadly,
Yeah.
four step I would say. Huh?
Yes, yes, yes,
And
yes,
then
yes.
normal operations activity or adding more feature based on whatever requirement or feedback we are getting from users.
Yes, yes. So that's like facilitating reviews and demos and writing and refining features and clarifying those features. So that is definitely, it's a regular work which one has to do. And these are the things which I spoke. I think they are not frequently discussed, and that's why I end up putting a little more emphasis on that area. But yes, regular work of backlog and prioritization will remain there. Projecting when the release will happen, how much will go, what all will go in a release one, what is the roadmap of a release. So those kind of things will continue. You may end up preparing roadmaps and all. Now, when I'm talking to you, I also realize that if you are targeting a product management ownership kind of a position, it may also be useful. So we spoke about that, create a clarity of your role. We also spoke about create a clarity of your organization structure where you are fitting into. And it might be also useful to create a list of the things as an artifact which we are producing. So you can say that as a person, as I am responsible for maintaining these 5 artifacts. For example, you may say that I am responsible for maintaining roadmap. I am responsible for maintaining vision. I am responsible for maintaining backlog and something like this. Yeah. So that preparation of those documents, and then you may have some template and some sample data of those documents in your mind, that itself makes you ready for answering those questions when it comes for interview. Yeah.
So when I come to the product owner matrix or report, what is supposed to prepare. So is it? I have got some list with me.
Mm-hmm.
So is it like one is validating hypothesis, then predictability, then release burn down, velocity, and lead time. It sounds more like a Scrum Master, but is it going with a product owner also? Validating
So
hypothesis, predictability, and all this.
okay, so now we need to be clear what is the artifact, and who created that artifact, and how do you resolve that. So you need to have a complete life cycle of artifact. So what is the content, what all goes in it, how it get prepared, and how it get used. So when you say that I need to have a validity of hypothesis, the question will come that, okay, who prepares the hypothesis? What is the format?
Hmm.
What is there? So maybe it goes back to your business case. It goes back to your epic. You can say that, okay, we have a business idea which has a set of hypotheses, which are because the ideas are based on some set of assumptions. So what I am responsible of, that I need to keep those
Mm-hmm.
hypotheses listed. Yeah, there is a place where we record all these hypotheses, and we also talk about what can help us in validating these hypotheses. So it's like this, that my hypothesis is the people who are using Facebook will join it. Yeah. Now, how do I know that people who are using Facebook are joining it? So each hypothesis has some indicator that, okay, if I do a MVP release, and by doing this MVP release, I see this happening, then this hypothesis is valid. If this is not happening, then this hypothesis is wrong. So when somebody says that I need to maintain a list of hypotheses, so it means I have those set of assumption, and I also have a clear identification of features or things which will go into MVP or as some version of a product. And then I have an
Mm-hmm.
expected observations. Yeah. And if I'm doing that in each larger review, when I'm doing with the stakeholders, that may become one of my presentation point. So I may add that, okay, I maintain hypotheses, I prioritize based on those hypotheses, and we also do a limited releases or MVP releases, and we measure those ideas. And in our periodic management reviews, I am expected to present those hypotheses and their results coming against those hypotheses.
So basically, after each release, we need to match the expectations which would come definitely out of those hypotheses, and what is the feedback from the market after each
Perfect.
release, and then we can match if we are how close we are to the hypothesis actually.
Perfect. So we do a corrective and preventive actions. Yeah. So if you are talking about that artifact, you can say that, we have these, so you may have an example of those hypotheses also. You maintain those, say, so these are the hypotheses which we are working on. So that's a one nice artifact. About release burn down charts and velocities and other things, they are more
Mhm.
about predictability of those releases. So it might be there. So what is the utility? You are only uh, using them primarily as to identify timelines. So in
Mhm.
your story, in your role, how important is to focus on timelines and what goes in which release. So you can say that this helps me to in identify what goes in which release. But before that, you need to also come up with a roadmap or some kind of a release roadmap. So because once you maintain the release roadmap, then only you can use this velocity and burn down chart data to project something that when can we expect these set of features coming in this product.
Mhm. Mhm.
So the second artifact, in order to use your release, burn down, other things, might be first is a roadmap. So you have, like, maybe you need to present that I have a 6 months roadmap, which is with me based
Mhm.
on my features and some level of estimates, and I reflect on it based on each iteration's velocity and a burn down chart. So that's the one thing. The second thing which is related is a current release plan. So you may say that I have a current release plan which is developed along with the development team because they only estimated it. And I maintain the current release plan updates based on what part is done and what part is not done, and what is the increment, what is the periodic velocity of the team, so that we can create a clear, more better visibility to stakeholders. When are we going to release this time, and what is going to be the content of that release. What you are maintaining is, you are maintaining the release plan, which is primarily focusing on date and content of the release. So these are like three
Yeah.
documents we have, three artifact rather than document, three artifact we have discussed. One is your hypothesis tracking, another is a roadmap, and the related one is a release plan. Yeah. And you may show the roadmap and release plan in a sprint reviews. You may show them in a some kind of a separate management reviews also. So you also need to be clear that I update, I create, these are the raw data, this is the format, and there I end up communicating about it. You are not making these artifact for yourself. You are making it for some stakeholder. So
Mhm.
we need to be very clear who are the
Correct.
consumer of this artifact. So we can say that these are Whereas burn down chart, you might be the consumer. You are not preparing it. So you are consuming it. Someone has prepared it for you. Yeah,
Okay.
and similarly, we can go further. But it's a great idea to have these
Mhm.
lists primarily when you are, and I'm not saying that there could be a 10 items, but in any project environment, you may want to focus on the one which you have seen happening and which you feel more connected with.
Right. Apart of this, Saket, I also go through some of the key characteristics for product owner. Like again, I have listed it like what is next thing to do, whom to speak, how I should, whom I should listen to, what kind of decision I should make, or what kind of decision I can make. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So all these things, like if I come to the first point, which is saying what is next thing to do. So it is very predictive. What is next thing to do? It will definitely be based on the feature of the product and the backlog and what is the priority of that backlog. This is talking the same direction, or it is something else trying to do when we are talking what is next thing to do.
It's a perfect thing, and I think it is matching in the same direction. And it may look that I already have a backlog, I need to just do that. But idea is not that,
Okay.
because you have a hypothesis and you are validating
Mm.
those hypotheses, and they will not get validated 100%. Some will be
Mm.
false, some might be
Right.
partially true. Now you need to find
Mm-hmm.
out what you should do next. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
every time we might change what we are going to next actually. So we
yes,
every time we have to revalidate the next step is going to be next, or second step is going to the first step, or maybe
perfect.
first step is going out of the picture and we are doing starting from the second step onward, right?
Yeah. So the idea here
Okay.
is something like this. You might want to give a home delivery of a breakfast. Yeah. And
Mm.
that's your product. You started thinking of that we have a website and we have an app which will do a home delivery of breakfast. And you made a list
Mm.
of breakfast items because you thought that people who are household and where they are running in a time where everybody is working from home, they may want to enjoy their morning rather than ordering it. And you thought of a family and a husband and a wife with a few kids, and they are kind of not want to spend 2 hours preparing for breakfast, and that's kind of a customer segment you thought, and you prepared a menu and you started selling it. Yeah, so assuming that that was your product and you did a first experiment. Now you have been getting orders for 1 month, 1.5 month, and you are not getting that amount of sales. Then you looked at your order and you said that, okay, let me analyze who is ordering the food. From tomorrow onwards,
Mm.
I will talk to them and I will understand who is ordering. And then you realize that 70% of the food is ordered by the bachelors. They don't have a family, they don't have a kid, they don't have a problem of cooking it, they are just lazy about doing it. But whereas you
Right.
have decided your whole menu based on the family, your portion is
Mm.
big and all those things, and you realize
Mm.
because that's the reason they are not that enthusiastic to order from you, but there is no other alternative which is healthy, so they are still ordering from you. Now what is this? So you decide to do something else. You says, okay, it looks like I need to change my customer segment, or I need to message this differently to reach to the family man. So now it's a decision point. Should I do something different because I'm unable to reach to the families, or I decide that looks like family is not a right market, I better focus on the bachelors and I change my menu which suits more to the bachelor rather than giving all those kind of a foods which were meant for kids and
Mm.
the whole family. So this is a
Right.
product owner job. So this is what you are
So
doing, or a product management job. You are finding out
mm.
what next to do. Yeah, which is a
Yeah.
very simple thing in
Yeah,
saying,
very simple and very
but
very
very,
clearly explained actually. So
yeah,
basically, what is next thing to do is keep changing or keep updating based on the output we are getting,
yes, based on the learning we are making. And
based
many
on the
time,
learning. Yeah.
and many time in a real world or in an actual world, many product owners, even shop owners, may not even bother to look at it. They just make their
Mm.
assumption initially, and then just they keep doing for multiple years without realizing what is happening. And many product owners also may end up doing that. But the smart product owners and smart businesses, they do that periodic analysis. They identify, okay, periodically that looks like we are going wrong. And that's the real difference. And someone may want to hear some kind of an examples of it. So better you bring some examples. If you are thinking of making that, he says, okay, this is how I identify what next to do.
Next thing in the list is it says whom to speak with. So my understanding, whom to speak with, I mean, it's related of getting. I mean, definitely, if we are getting, we want to get some feedback, then there would be separate set of people. If there's some challenge, there could be some stakeholder or maybe development team. So where we want, where this person want to point, whom to speak with, what does it mean? Any
So
idea?
what I see here is, especially in a product management space, it is all about stakeholder analysis. It's all about identifying the right stakeholders and working with them. Yeah. So if you don't have the right stakeholders, and if those are the, now what is right? That the set of stakeholders who has a sense of the customer or segment you are targeting to, and whose insight can help you position your product well. If you miss taking inputs from them, you miss adding those requirements in your product, or you miss
Mhm.
looking at that particular dimension. Now it's again an ongoing activity. I don't have a universal list. Sometime you may realize that there was a guy in a support who was talking to the end customer, and looks like I missed talking to that guy because that guy can provide more input to me. So I would say that continuous stakeholder analysis based on what you are learning from your previous product. So assuming you made a previous product and you may realize that this is happening from last 2 months, why
Mhm.
I could not try like detect it before. Then you may realize that I'm never taking input from the guy who is taking the order. Yeah. So then you change your stakeholder list. You say, so I need to talk to the guy who's taking the order because he could have given me this information that I am targeting wrong customer segment. So I do a
Okay.
stakeholder analysis. Yeah, that's the whole
Yeah.
idea. Yes.
So by whom to speak with is actually prioritizing or finding the right stakeholder actually.
Perfect. Yeah. So you can use a stakeholder grid. You can show that power and impact and interest and all those kind of
Mhm.
things. So that project management, you might have seen impact versus interest grid. And yeah, so maybe you have a classification of stakeholders who are getting impacted, who are supporting it,
Okay.
who are resistive to it and all those things.
Okay. So next thing in the list is whom should I listen to? I believe my understanding is again based on the maturity and the past feedback, we should be clever enough to understand for which stakeholder we should to listen and which not to. Or I would say ignoring would be the right word here,
Yeah,
but
again,
definitely,
stakeholder analysis. So I would say I will go back
yeah.
to a stakeholder analysis only. The people who can impact the decision, impact the success more, I need to listen to them more. Others, I just need to keep them informed. So don't use the word ignored. So the way we talk in a
Yeah.
stakeholder analysis is like keep people informed, manage them very closely, monitor
Mhm.
them, that there are some of the people we are just monitoring, something like this. Yeah. So you might be want to engage people, and at the same time, you also have to want to identify which are the set of stakeholders who may not necessarily need to be engaged on a regular basis. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Next 2 points are what kind of decision should I make? And the second is what kind of decision can I make?
So what kind of a decision I am making and what kind of decision I can make? Yeah. Is this the two
Yeah.
questions? So again,
What what kind of decision should I make, and what kind of decision can I make?
okay. So there are two things if someone is asking that. One is I will go back to the organization structure where you are putting yourself in. Yeah. So you are saying that these are the 10 stakeholders who
Mhm.
are giving me an input. These are the 20 stakeholders who are taking demo from me. And this is the team who is taking input from me. So in that particular layout, you need to identify in order to effectively operate there, what all decisions are expected to be taken by you. Yeah. So
Okay.
and if not taken by you, then who else is taking those decisions? So someone says that can we can we drop this pivot, or can we drop this product? Look like this is not making sense. And should we work on the second release of it? You are saying, no, this is not my decision. Then whose decision it is? You can say it's a portfolio decision. And how they take those decisions, they take a decision based on my data. So you see the whole product. Yeah, go ahead.
So I believe this answer, the answer would come from the RACI matrix actually.
Yeah. So just don't use the word RACI matrix, because
RACI X PMI.
yeah, because in the today's environment, people want that they should be more collaborative. Yeah, so we don't say that this is your area and this is my area. But yeah, actually that RACI doesn't have that intent. It's a good starting understanding, and there could be an overlap also. But my recommendation is play safe with it, because there are few people who will just get their antenna will get activated whenever they hear a word RACI, and they will say, oh, this person is coming from very traditional and bureaucratic organization. So there is a possibility. But yeah, RACI is a good way to make your thoughts clear. You can say, okay, this is how it usually happen, and you might present the story without using the word RACI.
So can we say roles and defining roles and responsibility?
Yes. You can say it's based on the roles. It's based on the influence people have, or if you want to use little a safe kind of a word, you can say it's based on the centralized and decentralized decision making. So we have a distributions of decisions. Which decisions need to be made at a epic level, and which decision has to be made at a feature level. So you probably, if you see that person is coming from that word, so says, yeah, we have a mechanism of centralized and decentralized decision making. These are the decisions which are at my level because they are decentralized. They are needed for me to take because it's an effective, and there are other which required bigger view, bigger input. They are strategic in nature, and that's why they are centralized. Yeah. So technically, it's all around stakeholder analysis and a role understanding around that.
Yeah. I would say, whether I'm not sure if I should use this term or not. It's more refined way, whatever we have learned from PMI actually.
I know. See, I would say the ideas are same, and many times ideas starts getting misused, and they become little bureaucratic. And in order to replace that misuse and bureaucratic mindset, the another theory comes in and they says we don't use these words because these words were associated with some misuse. So they bring their new words, and after some time, these words will also get misused, and something new will come.
Correct.
Misuse will continue. Correct. Yeah, misuse will continue, and we will keep replacing these words. Perfect. So if I see this whole thing and based on what we have discussed, so I am feeling, and you can correct if I am going in a different direction. So when one is preparing for, especially one is preparing for a little senior role in a product management space where you are demonstrating 15 to 20 years of experience, it makes good sense to have a better understanding and clarity about what kind of a product you want to talk about, where you position yourself in an organization, what kind of an artifacts which are associated with you, some artifacts you are consuming, some artifacts you are maintaining and presenting. So you have to have a clarity about it. You also need to have a clarity about it, type of a decisions and influence you are making in the product path. So technically roles and responsibility. And you may also have a clarity on how do you work with the people? How do you collect information and how do you work them? And you may also talk about the full life cycle of the product, which is like starting from an idea, talking intermediate inputs and refining what should we do next, and ultimately coming up with some level of understanding of what benefit we have realized from it.
Okay, great.
Anything you want to add or change here?
No, that is perfect, Saket, and we had a good discussion around PO product owner roles and interview. Right.
Perfect. So in case you get more ideas, more questions, we can do something like this again. But I think this is good place. We can pause for
it is good point to start with actually. And unfortunately, I could not get enough time. Whether I could actually, when I started working on the question that you shared, so I realized I did something on this, and then I had a 15-20 slide of a PPT talking about these things what we have given as a questions.
Mhm.
So I was just going again through those, and then we discussed this. Yeah,
Perfect. Perfect. It was good talking to you. And I think whenever we have some more ideas, we can have another follow-up conversation. And I think these kind of a conversation will help others as well, because in
definitely.
today's environment, many of the professionals are going through the similar dilemmas. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you very much, Sakib.
thank you. Nice talking.
Thank you.